Shirley Delorier, and the classes that we teach here are known as Awareness Through Movement lessons from the Feldenkrais method, and also as Neuromovement, which is from the Anat Baniel method. Anat Baniel was a student of Moshe Feldenkrais, and so it's a continuation of the same thing, and we're learning more about how our brain works all the time. Now, the lessons are designed to help people break through limitations. We use movement in the broadest sense, where you're thinking of our physical movement, our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, and this is literally the language of our brain. So when we're doing the moves, we want to pay attention to what we're sensing and feeling and move gently, slowly, and just let yourself enjoy the sensation without trying to make anything happen. So this will help your brain to create order from the disorder and to make sense of the nonsense. There are tools that we can use forever. So join us and enjoy the show. Okay, go ahead and lay on your back. Take a few moments to settle in. Get a sense of your contact with the floor. If having your legs long like this is uncomfortable or painful in any way, you can always put a little support under your knees, or if you need to, go ahead and bend your knees. You know, if you're in discomfort when your legs are long, feel free to bend your knees periodically. Just take care of yourself. So take a moment just to scan the way you're lying on the floor. Feel the way the back of your pelvis is in contact with the floor. Is it touching the floor fully or evenly, or is it a little heavier on one side than the other? Now, locate your tailbone. And then the tailbone right at the base of your sacrum there. And then just begin slowly scanning through your sacrum. And then through the lower part of your spine. And in your mind's eye. And see if you can feel it and visualize it. Sense where your tailbone is in relationship to your sacrum. Notice, does it feel like it curves? It's designed to curve like straight through in the direction of your, through your crotch, but sometimes it deviates off to one side or the other. See if you can even sense where your tailbone is. Then from your tailbone, scan through your pelvis. Continue to feel and visualize your spine, the low back area. Can you kind of delineate the vertebrae themselves, or is it kind of just all in a solid clump? Continue on up through your middle back, in between your shoulder blades, on up to your neck, and all the way to the base of your head. And once you reach the top of your spine, reverse the direction and feel and visualize your vertebra from the top of your neck all the way down to the tip of your tailbone. And notice which parts of your spine can you feel and visualize clearly, and which parts are not so clear. Or they may be absent in your sense of yourself altogether. The ones that are clear in our awareness are usually the area where we are moving, they're moving and functioning in our movement. And the places where we don't sense them so clearly are the areas that are probably stuck and not moving, or there's extra muscular contraction. And see if during the lesson more of your spine becomes clearer to yourself. Now pay attention to your rib cage. Your rib cage is behind that you're resting on. You sense the ribs on your sides, from under your armpits down to the bottom of the ribs. And in the front where they come around and connect to your sternum. We've got 12 pair of ribs that are attached in the back and in the front. So in the back, they're all attached to your vertebra. In the front, they're attached to your sternum directly and then indirectly through cartilage that connects them together. And then there are the two floating ribs on each side. Now feel the way your right leg is lying on the floor and the way your left leg is lying on the floor. And compare the feeling of length in your two legs. Do the two legs feel the same, or are they different one from the other? And if so, what's the difference and in what way are they different? Notice the direction that your feet are pointing, the direction your toes are going. And notice if the way your feet are held is the same on both sides, or is it a little different on one side than the other? Feel the point of contact of your heel on the floor. And gently just roll your right leg a little left and a little right. Feel what range of easy movement is available there. And then do the same thing with your left. Can you feel the movement in your hip joint as you roll your foot a little left and right? And bring your attention back to your breathing. And just take note of where you feel movement. And we'll compare that with how you are at the end of the movement. Go ahead and bend your knees and stand your feet. And have your feet spread about hip width. You find that, play with moving them out and in a little and towards your tush and away from your tush till you find that place where they feel like they stand real easily and you don't have to engage a lot of effort to keep them up. And then bring your attention to your breathing. Notice things like, does it feel like you inhale and exhale about the same length of time? And one way to kind of gauge this is just to yourself count as you're inhaling and then start over and count as you're exhaling and see if it seems to, of course, you make an effort to count at the same pace. Just to get a sense of the length of your exhalation and your inhalation. Now do it again, only this time make sure that you have your mouth closed and you're just paying attention to breathing through your nose. And again, repeat it a few times. So compare the length with your mouth closed with the length with your mouth open. And make a mental note to remember the difference so we can compare at the end. Now, exhale by pulling your belly in very powerfully and quickly. Do a quick inhale, pulling your belly in, engage those muscles. And notice if, when you go very powerfully and quickly through your nose, it seems like you don't need to inhale, at least not a lot. And let it out, of course. And feel free to let it out with sound, which would mean you're probably exhaling with a little bit of force. And just repeat this a few times. We want to wake up that area of our brain that tends to go dormant when our breathing becomes just automatic. And sometimes we end up with our automatic breathing being not the most efficient. And now, again, notice, is the length of your inhalation and your exhalation about the same? Let's go back to normal breathing, easy breathing, without trying to go to the maximum each way. Just go as if you were doing ordinary breathing. And then just go ahead and lengthen your legs and rest for a moment. And then bend your knees again. Stand your feet. And put your hands on your lower abdomen just above your pubic bone. And again, repeat that powerful exhale, but this time push your belly out and down. Think of pushing your belly out and down towards your pelvic floor. And repeat this a few times. Slowly, not rapidly, just pause with a breath in between. And again, exhale, pushing your belly down and out. And this helps to activate our diaphragm, actually. The diaphragm is this huge muscle with so many connections to different parts of our self inside that it can actually get stuck. And then let that go and lengthen your legs and rest. Notice any difference in your breathing or in your contact with the floor. What was it that got your attention when you first lengthened your legs? And then bend your knees again, stand your feet. Again, put your hands on your lower abdomen so that your fingers are like right down by your pubic bone. And again, repeat exhaling and pushing your belly down and out. And then do it one time exhaling and then do it one time inhaling. So one time you exhale and push your belly out and down, and then the next time you inhale and push your belly out and down. And start slow. And see if you can do it without rocking your pelvis. So that means if you can do it without rocking your pelvis, that means you're driving the force like right straight down towards your pelvic floor. Which again begins to open up areas that tend to have a lot of chronic holding. Okay, now one time, think as you inhale, pull your belly in and push your belly out as you exhale. You're going to inhale, pulling your belly in, exhale, pushing your belly out. And again, you're thinking down and out. And then reverse it. In other words, switch when you push your belly out or when you inhale, and when you push your belly out and when you pull your belly in. And then leave it go, lengthen your legs and rest. Our breathing is regulated by our exhalation. The longer we exhale, the deeper we can inhale. As the long exhalation creates space for the inhalation. Excuse me. What are you noticing?
There seems to be neither in or out pause between inhalation and exhalation.
So you're learning to to alternate two ways of exhaling and two ways of inhaling. Focusing on breathing like this can help to free up low back pain or low back muscles. And now bend your knees again and stand your feet. Now, I don't remember, have we done seesaw breathing in this class?
Yes.
Okay, now continuing to use the breath, thinking of it, going down to your, down towards your pubic bone, the floor of your pelvis there. Begin to do the seesaw breathing. So, and the seesaw breathing is independent. You can do it independent of your breathing, but as you're doing the seesaw breathing, the seesaw breathing, you're thinking of blowing, or you're moving like a water balloon down into your pelvis, and then thinking of pulling it up into your chest. So it's one that will inflate as you move it down. It will help to inflate in your imagination. Now it'll help to inflate the area it goes to in your pelvis, and likewise when it comes up into your chest. So as you begin to do the seesaw breathing now, thinking of moving that balloon down into your pelvis to see where it goes when you just initially move it there, and then see where it goes when you just spontaneously bring it up without thinking of directing it any place in particular. Just notice where it goes organically. When you direct it into your pelvis, into your lower pelvis, can you sense things opening up front to back? Can you sense things opening up side to side or going deeper in your pelvis? And then let that go, lengthen your legs and rest. Again, noting any subtle changes or big changes. And then go ahead and bend your knees again, stand your feet. Okay, now this time, as you're breathing and inhaling and exhaling, think of your balloon going to your right upper quadrant, like way up into your shoulder girdle, up into that space, and then down into your left lower quadrant. And now begin to think of it when it goes down into your pelvis, that it goes towards the floor. And when it goes up to your shoulder, it goes towards the front of your shoulder. So it goes at a diagonal and at a slant. And then change the slant so that it goes more anteriorly when you go to your pelvis and then posteriorly when you go up into your shoulder. And this can be done gently. Remember to use your imagination. Imagine spaces opening, allowing for the movement of the balloon. And then leave it alone and rest. Remember, slow and gentle is most effective. Imagining is really, really gentle. And then go ahead and bend your knees again, stand your feet. This now change the diagonal. And now I believe you're going into your left lower quadrant and right upper quadrant, or do I have it backwards? Pardon?
Other way.
Okay. So it's right lower quadrant and left shoulder, okay. So just begin, as you begin, notice where does it go spontaneously? Where does it feel like it goes right through the center of your torso? Does it feel like it's more towards the back, towards the front? Just notice what it is as you begin. And then gradually shift it a little so that you're going to the posterior down in your pelvis and anteriorly up in your shoulder. And then change it so that it's anteriorly in your pelvis and posteriorly up in your shoulder. And then leave it alone, lengthen your legs and rest. And again, the resting is to bring in your attention and your curiosity. Let yourself be interested in what you're noticing. Remember how little kids thrive when we show our interest and attention? We're the same way. We thrive with interest and attention. And now bend your knees, stand your feet again. And now go back to moving your balloon up into your chest. See where it goes now, and then down into your pelvis. See where it goes spontaneously now. We can release a lot of chronic holding. Doing a subtle imagining, subtle moving. What do you notice that's different, if anything? And leave that alone. Lengthen your legs and rest. Now roll onto your right side and bend 90 degrees at your hip and 90 degrees in your knees. And be sure you have something under your head to support your head so your head is comfortable now. And just let your right arm be long and your left hand in front of yourself on the floor where it's comfortable. And now begin to first imagine it. Imagine moving that balloon from your right lower quadrant up in, so you're down in your hip area, right hip, and moving it up into your upper right quadrant. So it has a little different pathway. Notice if you begin to feel movement in your rib cage. Notice that you can direct that balloon, the movement of that balloon with your imagination, your intention. So you can imagine it rolling along your rib cage. You can imagine it moving through that space between your ribs and your spine. Notice the ease or the dis-ease that it moves with. And leave it alone. Slowly roll onto your back and rest. Again, notice anything different after having done it just on one side. And then roll onto your left side, same way. Hips and knees at 90 degrees. Your right hand is on the floor now and your left arm is just long in front of you. Any way that you're comfortable. And begin by imagining moving your balloon now along from the left lower quadrant, clear down by your sit bone, on up into your left upper quadrant, way up into your shoulder. And notice where your balloon goes spontaneously. If you're just thinking of it moving from lower to upper and back. And then gradually change it so you're thinking of it going closer to the part of you that's laying on the floor, so now it's in the more towards your hip bone, hip area, and it moves more along your rib cage, up into your upper shoulder. Isn't it amazing the impact we can have just by imagining something? of lets us know that our mind is pretty powerful. Our brain is pretty powerful. And then shift so it's moving more in that space towards your spine. Still from your lower quadrant to your upper quadrant on the left. And then let that go. Slowly roll onto your back and rest. And again, keep your attention in. The rests aren't just to zonk out. Your attention has to stay alert, paying attention to what you sense and feel. And again, notice your breathing. Is anything changing there? Are there parts of you moving that weren't moving before as you inhale and exhale? And then go ahead and bend your knees again, stand your feet. And go back to moving your balloon from your pelvis down into, move it into your pelvis, lower quadrant or lower belly, and then up towards your head. Notice, can you think of it moving kind of along your center, like it goes between your spine and the front of yourself, your sternum? And then gradually shift it so that it's going like between your right shoulder and your hip. So you're on the right side of your, right of your spine, in between the ribs and the spine, on the right side. And then let that go, lengthen your legs and rest. And notice, is there any different sensation between your right side and your left side? If so, what are you noticing? And bend your knees again, stand your feet. This time, begin moving the balloon from your left lower quadrant to your left upper quadrant. And just begin and notice where it goes spontaneously if you're not thinking specifically of directing it someplace. And then begin to think of it going in a more posterior trajectory, like down towards your sit bone, then on up into your posterior shoulder, your shoulder blade area. And be gentle even in your imagining. And then pause a moment, and then imagine moving it anteriorly, so that you're moving more like towards from your collarbone down to the front of your left lower quadrant. And then just go back to just moving it up and down on the left side, that whole area, left of your spine. And notice, did anything change in doing a few variations? And then leave that alone, lengthen your legs and rest. And just notice, is anything changing in your contact with the floor? Or is anything changing as far as the organization of your head on your spine? Is there any need to change how much you have under your head? Now roll to your side and come to sit. Sit with leaning with your hands behind you and the soles of your feet together. So the soles of your feet together, wherever they're comfortable together. And they don't have to, if they're uncomfortable, I mean, they don't have to be touching necessarily. Find a place that they can be comfortable. And if you need to put something under your tush to be comfortable sitting like this, do it. That makes a difference. Yeah. And they don't have to be close. They can be out in front of you. Just put them where you can be comfortable. And now, leaning on your hands behind you, imagine moving this balloon down into your pelvis and then on up towards your head. Notice, does it roll your pelvis forward and back? Can you imagine it riding along your spine? And if this is an uncomfortable position for you, only do as much as you do comfortably and then stop and take a break. The moves that we do when we're in pain are futile. We don't gain anything. And you know, your feet don't even have to be totally together. I mean, you can come as close an approximation as it's much more better. Here's my any English teachers in here? It's much better to be comfortable.
You speak really good. You talk well.
Yeah. But I move well. Okay. So comfort is a priority, is what I'm trying to say. Remember, comfort is a priority. There's no prize for getting your heels close to your bottom. in this position, you're moving the balloon down into your pelvis and then back up into your up to the top. And it's much more effective to do a couple moves and then come out of it. And then now, come out of it so that you're comfortable, upright. And let's see, would you be more comfortable leaning on your elbows and forearms behind you? And then not if your heads have to go back too far. Okay, let's try just leaning on your hands further behind yourself. I'm looking for how you can get more comfortable. Is that better? Okay. And in this position, move the balloon from the middle, going up and down the middle of yourself. And notice, does it go more posteriorly or more towards the middle of yourself? And then do a movement going from your right lower quadrant to your upper left quadrant. And if you're uncomfortable, come out of it and take a break. It's much more effective to do one or two moves and then come out of it. In fact, everybody come out of it right now. So we went right lower quadrant to upper right. Breathe. And then lean on your hands behind you again. And change the diagonal. Now you're going to your left lower quadrant, right upper quadrant. And it can be just a gentle, subtle little movement. It doesn't have to be maximum effort. In fact, it's much more efficient to do just a few moves. And then let it go. Lay on your back and rest. That sounded like we went beyond the doing it in the range of comfort. Okay, so bend your knees, stand your feet. Now go back to moving the balloon down into your pelvis, and then up in the direction of your head. And you're doing this independent of your breathing. You're still breathing, but it doesn't have to be moving. You're using your muscles. You're not using the inhale and exhale to make it go. And now when it moves towards your pelvic floor, is there any difference in the amount of expansion you feel or response that you feel? And when you think of it going up towards your head, how far up does it go? Can you feel like as though your head moves up? Any movement in your spine? And then pause a moment. And now, begin to move that balloon from the right lower quadrant to your upper left quadrant. Notice where it seems to go easily and spontaneously. Does it feel like there's more room for it to be moving? Is there less resistance? And then pause again. And switch diagonal. So now you're going from the left lower quadrant to the right upper quadrant. Be sure your jaw is soft, there's space between your teeth. And then come back to the middle again. And go from the down into the lower quadrant, your pelvic area. Notice where it goes spontaneously. How much of it can you feel an increased amount of expansion in your pelvis when you think of it going there? Like, is your balloon getting bigger? And then alternate taking it up in the direction of your neck, your head. Notice where it goes there, how much expansion you feel in the area. And then leave it alone, lengthen your legs and rest. And what gets your attention? Is it your contact with the floor? Your breathing? What's different in your breathing than when you first started? What's different in your contact with the floor? Do you feel longer, flatter, wider, or just the opposite? What do you feel? And then just focus on your breathing for a few moments and just enjoy the sensation of your breath. Noticing, where do you feel your breath going? We know it doesn't go outside your lungs, but where do you feel the response in your being, your torso, you feel it down into your legs, into your shoulders, your arms. Where do you feel it? Just notice. And now take a few moments to imagine how you're going to roll to your side and come to sit and to stand off the floor or off your mat onto the floor. And when you're ready, go ahead and do that. Crack, crack, crack. It's a good thing. Things are moving, loosening up. Good. Okay, so feel your feet on the floor. Give you a few moments to notice what you notice. Is that a good thing or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's creating an imaginative way of getting you to flex your spine and all kinds of
That's
different
great.
things.
That's great.
Just farther
That's great. Awesome.
Works for her. I have no lower back pain, and I have a lot of lower back.
You too?
I feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, great.
I'll do this at home every day if that works.
Yeah, sure.
Do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't overdo it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I learned that lesson.
No, absolutely. It's great. Any of the lessons that we do, do
I can't believe that breathing made such a difference in my lower back.
it releases so much chronic holding.
Well, and also, the breathing imagination, if you are doing the imagining and the actual procedure, and then you switch to, okay, what's my spine doing? It's doing one of these, like I said, it feels like somebody's shaking like a dusty rag or something.
Awesome. Great. You did good work, guys. So, notice your sense of length or shortness. Sometimes we feel more compact, sometimes we feel elongated. Just notice what you feel. And then just gently look around yourself, a little to the left and a little to the right. But remember, you have a whole spine that turns. It's not just your head that turns, your whole spine can turn. Now think of turning your shoulders to look to the right and to the left. Unless we want neck pain, our head should never be moving alone without our movement of our shoulders. That rotates the whole spine. If we just turn our head, that's just those 7 vertebrae up above. And if you imagine now that your turn comes, when you're going to turn to the right, that your turn comes from your left foot. You're pressing there. And then reverse it, press on your right foot, turn to the left. That's it. We'll work on your golf game while we're here too. So.
That will help.
All right, okay. In fact, if you think of your shoulders moving, if you're going to turn to look at something, if you think of starting it with your shoulders moving, that gives your head a free ride, saves the neck, and it also invites your pelvis, your low back and your pelvis to join the party. So as you're standing there now, think of just gently pressing on your right foot, turning yourself around to the left, thinking of your whole spine turning. And then press on your left foot, think of your whole spine turning in that direction. But think of your pelvis turns, the middle of your turns, your shoulders turn, and your head can just ride along and you don't have to have neck pain. Okay, go ahead and walk around. That's it for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shirley Delorier, and you're welcome to join us in person if you ever want at the Addison Township Senior Center. That's it for today, so keep on moving well.